Good afternoon. We're going to be bringing our very first hearing of the Education and Economic Development Subcommittee to order. And so this will be a briefing that will largely help us on the subcommittee, and also my wonderful chair, Ben Barnes, who has come back to his old stomping grounds to learn with us. He can't stay away. We want to just, learn more what's happening in the Maryland higher education landscape in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling that largely overturned what we know to be affirmative action at the higher education level. And so we'll be hearing from a few remarks from the University System of Maryland, and then from Morgan State University, from St. Mary's College, and then from the Maryland Association of Independent Colleges and Universities. So we'll be hearing from institutions from all over the state, both public and private, historically Black colleges and non. And so without further ado, the very first panel we'll call up to present will be Allison Wren, the Senior Vice Chancellor of Academic and Student Affairs at USM, Shannon Gundy, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Management, the University of Maryland, College Park, Boyd Bradshaw, Vice President for Enrollment Management at Towson University. So thank you for joining us today. And I also want to give a special shout out to my Vice Chair, Kevin M. Harris. And oh my God, we have a newbie, Delegate Woolek from Montgomery County. This is her very first debut in the subcommittee. Why are you way over there? Oh, your neighbor's not here. Okay, I was about to say, we wouldn't just have you over there by yourself. So great to see you. Without further ado, we're happy to hear in whatever order you had arranged amongst yourselves.
Thank you, Chair Smith and Vice Chair Harris. We appreciate this opportunity to address the committee on USM campus reactions to the SCOTUS case on affirmative action. I'll make a few general remarks, and then my colleagues will be able to give you specific examples and answer the questions that you posed to us. Although we were disappointed by the June 29th decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, the USM had already engaged in conversations with our campuses for several months about this possible outcome. These conversations included assessing the current state of the use of race in admissions, as well as plans for post-decision admissions practices. Only one of the USM institutions used race as a factor, and it was only one of 26 factors. Following the SCOTUS decision, Chancellor Jay Perman issued a statement that reaffirmed the USM commitment to diversity as a guiding principle for the system. As he noted, Maryland is among the nation's most racially and ethnically diverse states. And so the first part of our mission statement, to educate and serve the people of Maryland, means we must reflect on our campuses and in our classrooms the state's population. This mission is reinforced in our strategic plan, Vision 2030. And our system is among the most diverse in the country, with 3 HBCUs and 3 minority-serving institutions. Our universities can and will do this work within the bounds of federal law. Chancellor Perman ended his statement by saying, "We are Maryland's public system of higher education. We serve the people of Maryland, all of them." We'll also examine the ways in which other states, such as Texas, Florida, and California, have met some of these admissions challenges. California has not been able to utilize race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin for preferential treatment in admissions since 1996 as a result of Proposition 209. There are lessons to be learned from the experiences in that state and others, and the opportunity to still promote diversity in all of its forms. I would now like to pass this off to our campus partners to give you more specific details about the questions you have posed to us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As was indicated, my name is Shannon Gundy, and I'm the Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management at the University of Maryland, College Park. As you probably know, College Park has a long-standing...
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just
Certainly.
have to give an update. There are some issues with the camera as it's facing you. The public, you can hear audio, but they may not be able to see you. So I just want to make sure for anyone live streaming that they understand we're working on it. And I want you to resume. I apologize for having to interrupt.
Absolutely. As you probably know, College Park has a long-standing commitment to all types of diversity. And I know that today our focus is on racial diversity. So I thought that I'd point out some tangible efforts to ensure racial diversity at the College Park campus, which actually go back decades. I've been at the University of Maryland for 33, actually this is my 34th year at the university. And during my tenure at the university, I have seen a number of very, very tangible efforts that show our commitment toward diversity, starting with the challenge to the Benjamin Banneker Scholarship years ago, and the university's commitment to trying to ensure that that scholarship would be able to continue. But the tangible commitment to diversity that we have at the University of Maryland has continued through today. And as a result, there's a whole lot for us to discuss. But because of my limited time, I thought it might be helpful to simply outline some of the measures which demonstrate our commitment and will allow us to ensure that continued commitment in spite of the most recent SCOTUS decision. So after the University of Michigan and University of Texas cases, which also challenged the use of race in college admission process, we built a really solid foundation which prepared us for this most recent decision. Our holistic application review process and the processes which support it have been recognized actually as being among the nation's best practices for holistic admission, which support and enhance diversity. As a result, we are routinely called on to detail our processes on a national scale. Whenever there are challenges or changes to the law, we complete months-long assessments of our application review process to ensure compliance with the laws as they change. We've actually developed a philosophy on undergraduate admissions, which guides our application review process and details the types of students we seek to enroll and the factors we assess in order to identify these students. And we've identified 24 application review factors which may be considered in our application review. We receive about 60,000 applications for admission each year. Among those applicants, it's most likely that a good number of them could be academically successful at the university. So we could simply admit students with the highest grade point averages and test scores. However, this would not allow us to meet the enrollment charge that we have as Maryland's flagship university, or to provide the best educational outcomes for our students. We know that the best educational outcomes are realized when classes of students are diverse. This means carefully shaping our classes to ensure academic preparedness and talent, diversity of perspectives, racial and ethnic diversity, geographic diversity, diversity of academic interest, socioeconomic diversity, and more. Our goal in the admission process each year is to admit and enroll the best possible combination of students to ensure that all of our students have the strongest and most beneficial educational experience possible. Our holistic application review process goes far beyond the transcript and SAT scores to consider all available information about a student in order to meet the goals of our admission philosophy. Of course, after the SCOTUS decision, we updated our application review factors to eliminate the consideration of race and ethnicity during our holistic application review. And in addition to the information provided directly through the application, our holistic review also uses information provided by the review tool called Landscape. Landscape is a free tool provided by College Board, which provides census data that adds additional contextual information to our review process, including general information about high schools and the neighborhood where students live relative to national or state averages. At Maryland, we've also conducted a study in which we eliminated race from students' applications and then conducted our holistic application review without that consideration. And we've assessed the outcome if we were to move to a top 10% plan like that in Texas. Unfortunately, we learned from these studies that the movement to either of these types of admission processes would have a detrimental impact on the diversity of our incoming classes. And knowing the potential for this kind of negative impact on our admission outcomes and wanting to continue to enhance the diversity that we have at UMD, we've actually built a team committed to developing and overseeing the implementation of our diversity recruitment and aiding students as they transition from high school to UMD. This team includes an associate director who oversees the entire area, a coordinator who focuses on the development of outreach and recruitment efforts for African-American students, and his counterpart who oversees the same type of efforts for Latinx students. We have a coordinator who oversees our efforts related to Maryland's rural student communities, and a coordinator who provides direct personal support to students transitioning to UMD from Baltimore City and Prince George's County Public Schools. Along with 15 other colleges and universities, we've become inaugural members of the Small Town and Rural Students Network, known as STARS, which allows us to provide an on-campus and community-based events, professional development for school counselors, free college counseling, dedicated resources for the counseling community, as well as professional development, and assistance with the college application process, need-based financial aid, and more to the 18 counties designated as rural by the Maryland State Office of Rural Health. We are founding members of the College Board's Access and Diversity Collaborative, which is a cross-disciplinary group of education professionals and organizations that's dedicated to upholding the principles of equitable access to higher education and promoting campus diversity. In direct preparation for the SCOTUS decision, we assembled a working group comprising leaders from across campus to ensure our preparedness to react to the decision and to publicly reaffirm our commitment to diversity. This group includes representatives from enrollment management, undergraduate admissions, institutional research planning and assessment, the graduate school, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, University Marketing and Communications, and the Office of the General Counsel. We moved to the Common Application, which simplifies the college application process, thus eliminating a barrier to applying. We've initiated a test optional application pilot, which many feel also eliminates a barrier to application. Of course, we've increased the number of recruitment and yield programs that we provide, hosting about 80,000 visitors on campus last year. And we've targeted programs for students of color. Each year, we host the Maryland Ascent program in Baltimore City and Prince George's County, where we travel to those areas to provide college application workshops, essay workshops, and financial aid workshops to program participants and their parents or guardians. Annually, we host a college access conference to provide information about the college application process to students of color from all across the state. And each spring, we host an overnight stay program for newly admitted students of color to allow them to experience life on a college campus and to engage with faculty and currently enrolled students. In addition, this past year, we conducted 257 high school visits, participated in more than 70 college fairs, engaged in outreach to more than a dozen community-based organizations, and we're increasing our outreach to faith-based organizations. All of this happened in the state of Maryland last year. These efforts are just a sampling of our work, which reflects a continued and true commitment to providing college access to the state of Maryland and to the diversity of our student body. In combination, these efforts have allowed us to have an undergraduate enrollment that is 55.8% students of color. In addition, we have a 6-year graduation rate of 84.1% for African-American students and 82.9% for Latinx students. And I say all of this to demonstrate our commitment to diversity, but also to reassure you that that continued commitment will go forth, and we will continue to do all we can to ensure the diversity of the University of Maryland College Park. Thank you.
I don't have as much to say as Shannon. She said it all. And there's a lot of similarities between Towson University and Maryland when we look at students that apply for admission. I'm Boyd Bradshaw. I'm the vice president for enrollment management. And I've been here at Towson for about 1.5 years. And one of the things, I came from the Midwest. And I came from Indiana University, which I think we're all familiar with in the state of Maryland. You know, what attracted me, doesn't mean I'm a big fan. Okay. What attracted me to Towson was its diversity act in the work that they were doing in the country. You know, Towson University has continued to be recognized for not only enrolling a diverse student population, but graduating students at a very high rate. Just this past year, we joined forces with the American Talent Initiative. We're one of 123 institutions in the country that's really focused on making sure that we provide students the right opportunities and provide pathways for them, not only to enroll, but also to graduate and be successful. We are really focused this past year on the city of Baltimore. We created some new programs. One of the key mark programs that we've established this year was called TU for Baltimore. We're working hand in hand with high school counselors from the city schools And they are recommending students that might be, say, borderline, that normally might not have the opportunity to go to college, but they have all these other attributes that would make them successful. And we admitted our first class. And what we found, they're small numbers to start with. We had 23 students. All 23 students were successful this fall and are continuing on in the spring. And that is really good. And it's just a starting point for us. I think there's more outreach we can do in the city of Baltimore. One of the other things I want to mention is, Towson moved to the Common App exclusive. So students only can apply to Towson University through the Common App. And that was a move that was made 3 years ago. So that did open up and became more accessible, but also provided one way to apply, which I think is less confusing for the students that are applying to college. At the same time, coming off the pandemic, we have decided not to use test scores at all moving forward. What we have found at Towson is that we are bringing a more diverse student into our applicant pool, and our preliminary data, I mean, we don't have graduate data yet because we're not that far along into it, is that our retention is strong. This year, our fall to spring retention rate for the largest freshman class that we brought in ever in the history of Towson is up 2%. And so we are attracting the right students. We have looked at our criteria, our GPAs, in regards to any type of guarantee that we might have. I think it's important as we think about this, as we move forward, there's a lot of initiatives throughout the country that's happening behind us. Common App right now is showing an increase in a diverse applicant pool across the country, which tells me that the affirmative action decision, and Towson's seen the same thing, might not have had as big as an impact as some people might think it has. It might have opened up some doors. The data is not quite there yet, but I think that what we're seeing is we're not seeing a decrease of a diverse applicant. And actually, we're about 8% up for next fall. We don't have 60,000 applications. We're going to hope for about 20, but that's big for us as we don't bring in as big of a class. So that's a little bit about Towson University.
Thank you so much for the panel's presentation. I want to give my chair an opportunity to get the first crack at questions. You sure? Are there any questions? I actually have a couple of questions. I wanted to get more information about how you gauge the experience, because graduation rates are good, but I do know that people often talk to others about their experience, and that can affect if other people even want to apply or accept admission. So do you do any type of surveys of, target student demographic groups to get a better sense of what their experience is like at either university?
At the University of Maryland, we certainly do. We do a new student survey. Each year, there is a survey that includes information about why students chose to enroll at the university, information about their experiences at the university, and that information is actually fed back into the units that have direct impact there. There are also opportunities to get information from those students who live in the residence halls and communicate with those students. And we're very receptive to that kind of information. One of the things that influenced something really tangible for us was that we were having a good deal of success identifying students of color who may not fit the traditional mold of students that were offered admission to the university. We offered them admission. They came to the university, and then what we found is often their eyes were this big. Like it's a large place. It can be intimidating if you don't know much about the university. If you're a first generation college student, it can be the case that you don't have folks to go to get that kind of information that you need. So we created a new position that actually works with students to help them transition from high school to the university. We have tons of resources available, but we wanted to find a way to make it easy for students to access those resources. So we have someone on staff who literally holds the hands of students and connects them to the resources on campus that can help resolve any problems or concerns that they have.
Very good. And I wanted to tease out, what is the population of Black students at Maryland? I know you had the overall students of color, but I want to know if you could break down that composition a bit further.
I thought you might ask that.
You are so on it. Go you.
So for the entire undergraduate population at the university, the number of, let's see. So for first-time students at the university, it's 11.8% African-American students, 27.5% Asian, 9% Hispanic or Latino students, 0.1% Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. We also have a category of students that are 2 or more races, and that percentage of students is 5.1%.
Well, thank you for that, because I think it definitely speaks to the parity we have with the overall demographics for the state. There's work to do, obviously, with our African-American Black student population. So just wanted to make sure we had that on the record. And then also, if there any additional information Towson might want to share about how you've successfully closed the achievement gap?
Yeah, so we do a climate survey each year, and it actually is for faculty, staff, and students, which I think is great because you learn from each other. How you're working, but we do have a lot of programs on campus that really look at students. This past year we had what we call a 4-week intervention. So at the 4th week, all faculty had to report out on their students. Absenteeism has been up across the country and at Towson too, and so getting on top of that, making sure students are going to class is one of the things that we're focused on. It was successful. I just have one stat I want to share, and I think Shannon, it goes in line with what you've said, is that if you're looking at particularly at Black or African-American students, we have increased our degrees conferred by 15 percentage points in the last 13 years. And so we went from a 10% to a 25%. And that was huge for Towson, because this is the first year that Towson can say it really is a majority minority campus where the larger percentage of students are non-white.
Thank you so much. We have questions from my Vice Chair, Harris.
Appreciate it, Madam Chair. So thank you so much for the reports. This is great information, and it's good to see and hear the great work that's being done. Congratulations on the 34 years of experience out there. That's amazing. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, it was the 257 visits, right? So there's 257 visits that was made out to the schools, and we talked about a lot of how we're making transitions possible once they get to the actual college. My question is, because obviously if a person was playing sports, a scout would probably go out there multiple times, right? So my thought is, how many times are we actually going out there touching those particular students to see their interests? Because I believe exposure is key. And the more that someone in a low income area is exposed to information and thoughts that they have not even seen in their own household, it may spark an interest in their mind to even apply to colleges that they didn't even know even exist in their surrounding areas. So how are we making those touches, and is that being tracked?
I think you're absolutely right that exposure is critically important, and building personal relationships with students is important, because a lot of students who are first generation college students or who are living in communities that don't have large populations of students that are going to college could really be intimidated by the process, not even know how to move forward. So we do work diligently to try to ensure that they have that kind of exposure and have their questions answered. We visit the schools as much as they will allow. So they do limit the number of times that we can come into the schools. So we will typically visit at least during the fall, and sometimes we go back in the spring if they will allow us to do that. In addition to us going into the schools, we found that what's much more effective is getting the students on our campus. So we're trying to expand the opportunities to get students on campus. For example, we've looked into and have executed programs where we're actually sending buses out to get students, to bring them to campus, to give them information about the campus, but then to let them see the campus, to experience what campus life is like. We have a conference that we do every summer that gets students on campus. I actually started this conference dozens of years ago. And the first year that we held the conference, we had about 99 people attend the conference. And we thought that was great. We were excited about it. But at this point in time, we typically have about 1,500 people come each year to the conference, where we are not necessarily trying to recruit them to Maryland, but to get them interested in going to college and to provide the resources that they need in order to go to college. We have a number of programs that are in the communities like Baltimore City, Prince George's County. But as I said earlier, earlier, we're also expanding our work with rural communities because we know that there are large populations of students there who are in the same situation, who may not be familiar with the college-going culture and have questions about that process and are intimidated by the size and the reputation of the University of Maryland College Park, but could probably be very, very successful on our campus. So we're working with those populations of students as well. And as I said, our biggest thrust is to try to get them on campus and give them the information that they need. But when that's not possible, we're going out to them and providing information to them and to their counselors, because we need to make sure that the counselors have the information so that they can convey that to students and they can feel supported in the process as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I remember when I was in high school, not too long ago. So we went to Upward Brown program that allowed us to get onto the campus at that time and actually spend a few weeks there during the summer. And actually we did like one Saturday per month. And actually that exposed me to the college atmosphere. So I think that's important. So I have one more quick question, Madam Chair, for Mr. Bradshaw. And that was, you talked about how Townsend was doing enrollment and not using test scores for that process. I would love to know how that is working, because I wasn't a great test taker either growing up, but I believe we did pretty well afterwards. And those students, I want to know, how are those students doing? And once they finish that process, what that data will look like, because I'm pretty interested to see how high that rate will be from those particular students.
Yeah, we're still looking into the data because it's still fairly new. I think one thing that we can point out is that our retention, our first to second year retention, so once the student starts in the fall and do they come back in the following fall, we are seeing an increase with this year's class, which was our largest. And so when you bring in a large class like that, everyone will question, well, how did you do it? Did you lower your standards? We didn't lower our standards. We just admitted the right students. Mm-hmm. And I think it allows us to be more holistic, like Maryland College Park has been in the review process. Towson didn't used to be holistic. It would just look at test scores and GPA. We've moved in that direction. So I think those two combined has really helped us. But there's more information to come to see how successful we are. I just want to mention one other thing that I think is important for us not to forget is that it's a community college student as well. Mm-hmm. I think, we at Towson, enroll a large percentage of transfer students from the state of Maryland. And that partnership with community college is going to be key as we move forward, particularly into recruit and attract a diverse population.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep. Excellent point. Delegate Woolek.
Is this off now? And thank you, members of the panel. I have two questions. One specifically on the recruitment when it comes to the well-being of the students of color, because historically students of color, have experienced more challenges in their well-being. So as you're recruiting and bringing students on campus, what have you incorporated in your process so that they feel accepted, they feel that they belong, they have that place, and then also, of course, have that experience while they're on campus so that their well-being is prioritized?
For us, the key to that is ensuring that they have the opportunity to connect with currently enrolled students at the university. What we found is that when students find their place on the campus, and I mean when they find people that they can relate to, people they can interact with, people who can help show them the way, that they're much more successful and much happier. So we try to incorporate into all of our programs, all of the official programs, even our regular daily visit programs, an opportunity for these students to interact with other students on our campus who can sort of give them the inside scoop as to what it's like to be a student at Maryland. In the Office of Undergraduate Admission, we also have a group of peer advisors that are students that have worked with us to help us in the recruitment process, but who also extend themselves to admitted students and newly enrolled students to help them navigate the campus and to find out, where should I go for this? Who can help me with this? So that they have that connection. What we're finding is that students who have that connection to the campus find it much easier to navigate and are much less frustrated when problems arise. All of us know that there are going to be situations that arise in all of our daily lives, but knowing where to go to get those problems solved is, I think, key.
And I would just say, with College Park and with us, I mean, our roles as VPs for enrollment management, I mean, that word enrollment management is not just about bringing in students. It's really making sure we're putting the things in place. And we have a first year advising program that really connects students to academic advisors that are not full-time academic advisors, they're faculty, they're staff. And we look at the demographics, we look at the type of student versus the type of person doing that advising. And so that actually has helped students in their first year at Towson.
I appreciate both those efforts. And my one follow-up question is about sort of the other end of the experience. We've talked a lot about getting diverse students into campus and having them have that experience. And then at graduation, how are those students doing with job placement? How successful are they in comparison to other institutions nationwide as well? And thank you.
I smiled when you asked that question. My daughter graduated from the University of Maryland after swearing that she would not go to Maryland. She thought I was going to stalk her or something. But she is actually involved in a job search now. She worked on campus for a while on a contract position. At the end of the contract, she's actually working with the campus advising center, the career center, who is helping her with her job search, giving her information not just about employers that are looking for graduates of the University of Maryland, but providing access to information. She's thinking about changing her career, giving her information about tools that she can use to prepare herself for a career change, information about preparing your resume, interview assistance, any kinds of things like that remain available for students once they graduate from the university, not just for currently enrolled students. And she's taken advantage of that and found it to be very, very helpful. The other thing is because the University of Maryland has a really strong reputation in terms of its graduates. So we have hundreds, like at least 500 employers that are coming to our campus annually looking for graduates of the University of Maryland to hire. And they will work specifically with the Counseling Center, but also with our Office of Multi-Ethnic Student Education, the Nauru Cultural Center, places that are on-campus homes for students of color to ensure that those students are brought into the efforts to recruit for employment after graduation.
Thank you. Oh, you're done. Did you have anyone? Oh, there you go. Delegate Forbes. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here today. As the delegate that gets the privilege of representing Towson University, I am always pleased when I'm on campus by the diversity of the students on campus. It really reflects our state, and I'm very proud of the work that they do there. Can you talk about some of the socioeconomic supports you have in place to make sure that they don't feel the economic pressure, first generation students?
Yeah. That's one thing I think a lot of people will ask, well, how do you do it? How do you bring in such a diverse group of students and graduate everyone at the same rate? We're very intentional about our financial aid strategy, particularly on the need-based side. We actually award more need-based aid than we do on the merit. A lot of universities, it shifts depending on the type of university and what they're looking at. And I think we do a really good job of identifying students that are at the greatest need. I mean, the state of Maryland, which I found being here just for a year and a half, has a wonderful state grant program. But that's not just enough money for the students because housing costs have gone up, fees have gone up, incidentals have gone up. And so what we're really trying to do is make it as affordable as possible, but also making sure on the front end that we are talking to students about what it means to go to college, what it means to have to take out a loan. So it's that financial aid awareness. I think that's really, really important. The other thing is getting students to live on campus. Shannon mentioned getting the campus to visit. Really, we want them to live on campus. We show that students that actually are on campus graduate at a much faster rate. They're more successful. But again, students need to be able to afford to do that. And so offering programs where we actually are providing housing, room and board, and that TU for Baltimore program that I talked about, although it was only 23 students, it was really successful because none of those students had to pay a dime in their first year. And we just got the funding to extend it to year 2, bring in a new cohort of 30 and keep the 23 going for year 2. So we have to have programs like this in place in order to be successful.
Thank you.
And College Park is exceptionally committed to ensuring the affordability of a Maryland education for students. A little more than a year ago, we created a program called the Terrapin Commitment, which allows students who are Pell eligible students, residents of the state of Maryland to be able to attend the university at an affordable cost. One of the reasons that I've been at the university as long as I have is that there is a true commitment to not just diversity, but affordability and academic success for populations of students of color. Our president, Daryl Pines, is ridiculously committed to this effort and holds all of our feet to the fire to ensure that the university is serving these populations of students well. And part of that is allocating funds to ensure that students can afford to attend the university. It's not just getting them in the door, but getting them in and through to the point of graduation.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so I just have one last data question. If you don't have it, that's fine. You can get back to me. I know that there's been a lot of research around the persistence to graduate and professional education for Black and Brown students, sometimes being lower at TWIs and HBCUs. So I didn't know if you track the persistence of your graduates to further their education at graduate and professional schools.
I don't have that information, but I'm sure I can get it for you.
Yeah, I would love to see that. And that's all for us.
Same for us. We'll get that to you.
Yeah, totally fine. Thank you. I'm really encouraged by everything you've shared with us today. Thank you for doing the work before a court decision and continuing and persisting afterwards. So thank you for the entire panel's time.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Yep, thank you.
I believe the next panel will be largely virtual. We'll be hearing from representatives from Morgan State University, including Dr. Ryan Maltese, Associate Vice President for Student Success and Retention, and Ms. Kayla Granville, Director of Admissions and Recruitment. I believe the next panel will be largely virtual. We'll be hearing from representatives from Morgan State University, including Dr. Ryan Maltese, Associate Vice President for Student Success and Retention. Could you mute or turn off the live stream you're looking at, because we're getting delayed feedback? Yep. Okay. And then you can begin in your respective orders that you can choose amongst yourselves.
Okay, I'm hoping that works for everyone.
You sound
Apologies.
wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My name is Dr. Ryan Maltese. I am the Associate Vice President for Student Success and Retention. I'm joined by my colleague, Ms. Kayla Granville, who is our Director of Admissions and Recruitment for the university. I have just a brief statement, and then we'll open up for questions from the esteemed committee. Morgan State University is Maryland's preeminent public urban research university, boasting approximately 10,000 students at the undergraduate and graduate level. We are a diverse array of students representative of over 70 countries and from almost every state in the nation. We are the only university designated by the federal government as a national treasure. And since our inception in 1867, our mission has always been the education and elevation of historically underserved student populations. And though historically our student population has been primarily African American, today's Morgan is not monolithic in its demography, be it race, ethnicity, gender, nationality, income, or first-generation status. Though the recent SCOTUS decision sent shockwaves across the higher education landscape, at Morgan, its impact was minimal, as Morgan State does not, under any circumstances, admit students based on race. Instead, our mission is to provide access to those students seeking an opportunity to further their education, and our primary metric is achievement. Like Towson, we are test optional and rely heavily on the Common App for admissions consideration. We consider ourselves one of the most diverse universities in the state of Maryland. And though diversity is often defined through the lens of the number of minority students admitted by PWIs, we want to note that at Morgan, from a racial and ethnic demographic, nearly a third of our students identify as non-African American. We also want to note that more than half of our undergraduate student population is Pell eligible and or first generation, which are two demographics that have historically been underrepresented in college degree attainment nationwide. Morgan is committed to all of our students, regardless of social demography, and we look forward to discussing with this committee, this esteemed panel, the questions that they have regarding the recent decision and our efforts here at Morgan State. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there going to be any remarks from Ms. Granville? No?
Not currently, I'm here.
Okay, just want to make sure. I can't leave a woman out, I got to make sure we're all covered here.
I appreciate
So,
it.
I'm curious, I already know that in the lead up to the Supreme Court decision, there was already increased interest in applicants to Morgan. Are you seeing that increasing in light of the decision, those trends?
I can't really say that that is a primary factor in our increase of applications. There are multiple factors in that. We too, just like our colleagues prior, also are a part of the common application. We have our own Morgan Apply. We've certainly increased our recruitment efforts in the state of Maryland as well as nationally. Many of the same opportunities that our colleagues are engaged in terms of having groups on campus, providing tours, doing high school visits, all of those different initiatives are very much a part of our recruitment strategy as well. So, that can be a factor, but it also can be the increased interest of HBCUs, particularly in the landscape after the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor incidents in 2020. It can also be the celebrity attention as, HBCUs and the additional scholarships that have been funded to our institutions. There's so many different factors, but like our colleagues, we too are seeing an increase of applicants. And as Dr. Maltese just mentioned, it's not just among African-American students, it's among all students who want to have a post-secondary education at Morgan State.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we want to thank you for your time. Would you mind hanging around should there be any additional questions?
Sure.
Okay, and we'll move to the next. Would it be okay if I brought them? Can we bring up St. Mary's College and Amicua, just so everyone's already situated? So this will be, hold on, David Hautanen, okay. Vice President for Enrollment Management, and then of course Matt Power, President of Amicua, and Mr. Hautanen.
Thank you very much. Chair Barnes, Chair Smith, Vice Chair Harris, and members of the Educational and Economic Development Subcommittee, I thank you for the opportunity to share St. Mary College of Maryland thoughts on the Supreme Court of the United States opinion in the case of the Students for Fair Admission versus the President and Fellows of Harvard College. Again, my name is David Hautanen, and I'm very pleased that you pronounced it correctly. Thank you very much. As you can imagine, that sometimes is a challenge for folks. And I want to say it's always very happy to make the trip up here to Annapolis. St. Mary's College of Maryland, as the designated public honors college for the state of Maryland and a small institution by design, reviews applications for admission in a holistic manner as we seek to enroll an intentional and diverse community of citizen scholars. This means the admission committee considers both the applicant's academic achievements, their personal strengths and interests, as evidenced by the academic transcripts, essays, recommendations, interviews, test scores, extracurricular activities, and what we learn from the application for admission. Admission decisions are not based exclusively on a grade-based formula. It is a thoughtful process as the college seeks to enroll students who are simultaneously academically talented, prepared to thrive in our honors level curriculum, and ready to be engaged and contributing members of our community. The application review and admission process are two distinct phases. The first is the holistic review and assessment process of the applicant's record, personal experiences, strengths, and interests. While race and ethnicity is not a factor, following the SCOTUS opinions, these demographic characteristics are masked on the application for admission and in the admission system, so they're not viewable by any member of the admission committee. During the admission decision process, the second phase, the admission committee monitors a range of data points as applicants are selected to shape the characteristics of the incoming class. In addition to the academic profile, personal characteristics, and evaluative data points, these include a range of demographic characteristics such as state of residency, citizenship, first-generation status, school groups, as well as academic interest groups to ensure the necessary number of applicants in these cohorts meet the college's enrollment goals based on our predictive analytics. Following the SCOTUS opinion, race ethnicity data is no longer included in reports admission staff use to monitor the progress of the admission decision-making process. To mitigate the impact of not having race and ethnicity data available when shaping admission decisions, the admission committee is placing even greater emphasis on first-generation status and on the admission of students from secondary schools with more diverse student populations. While the college's admissions process is selective, it is important to note that our first-year cohorts have grown increasingly diverse and academically credentialed over the last decade. As we continue our work to grow enrollment, the goal of the admission process will be to select academically prepared students who are ready to engage and contribute to our diverse honors community. In 2018, the college began implementing a strategic recruitment plan designed to increase awareness and interest in the college with a goal to rebuild enrollment. With a primary focus and emphasis on Marylanders, the plan includes recruitment outreach to prospective students, high schools, and community colleges across the state. Indeed, this past year, the admission staff has made more than 290 visits to high schools and community colleges over the course of the fall. Among other initiatives designed to ensure that we recruit and enroll a class that best reflects the diversity of the state of Maryland, the plan also includes the development and enhancement of partnerships with community-based organizations such as the College Bound Foundation in Baltimore City and College Track located in Prince George's County. This plan has resulted in record applicant pools, which have yielded the most diverse entering classes in the history of the college. The college assesses recruitment and enrollment plans annually and adjusts these plans based on the results of the previous cycle. As this plan is already designed to attract, recruit, and enroll academically talented and diverse student body, the SCOTUS opinion has not informed any substantive changes. As the state's designated public honors college, the role of St. Mary's College is to provide an honors level education akin to the very best private liberal arts colleges while remaining accessible and affordable for Maryland students. This dual commitment to providing access and opportunity to students who are both academically talented and prepared to thrive in our curriculum is reflected in the success of our new student recruitment plans, as well as in our retention plan and in the college's new strategic plan, The Rising Tide. The college remains committed to recruiting, enrolling, and graduating students who reflect the diversity of the state as evidenced by Goal 3A of this strategic plan that explicitly states we employ strategies to have a student body that reflects Maryland's diverse and multi-ethnic population. In advance of the SCOTUS opinion, the college was concerned about how far-ranging the opinion might be and to what extent it might extend beyond the admission decision process. Specifically, we reviewed our application evaluation process, merit scholarships, financial aid systems, special program selection practices, as well as our privately funded St. Mary's College Foundation scholarships to determine potential exposure. The opinions now focus on admission, place the college in a good position to continue implementing our student recruitment plans, holistic application review, and evaluative process to best reflect Maryland's population. Overall, the changes that the college made in our process, while impactful regarding our ability to finally shape the admitted class, they were limited. Following the admission cycle, we will better understand the impact of the opinion on the admission and new student enrollment results of the college and across the higher education landscape. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Chair Smith, Vice Chair Harris, members of the committee. I'm Matt Power, President of the Maryland Independent College and University Association. We represent Maryland's 13 independent colleges and the 54,000 students across the state of Maryland that they serve. We're really thankful that you invited us here today and gave us an opportunity to brief the committee on the changes in the higher ed landscape as a result of the Supreme Court's decision. You know, as an association, we're very concerned about the decision because our members have made tremendous progress, particularly over the last decade, to increase diversity on all of our campuses and make independent education available to everyone. 90% of our full-time undergraduates receive financial aid to attend one of our institutions. Since 2010, MICUA members have achieved an 89% increase in underrepresented minority students. Currently, our student body is very similar to our colleagues at University of Maryland. 41% are students of color, 30% are underrepresented minority students, 25% of our undergraduates are Pell recipients, and 24% of our undergraduates are first-time students. When the decision first came out, we immediately started talking to our presidents and admissions directors to determine the immediate and long-term impacts. And I'd say candidly that we were a little bit surprised at the feedback that we received. They were all personally and professionally disappointed in the decision, but none of them felt that the decision would impact or undo the work that they are doing to increase diversity on all of our campuses. So in order to get some facts to accompany the anecdotal information that we were hearing, we sent out a survey to each of our institutions to determine what, if any, changes they were making to their admissions policies as a result of the decision. 9 of 13 institutions did not make any changes to their admissions policies as a result of the decision. Of those that did, most were removing demographic information fields from the common application because all of our schools also accept the common application. But again, 9 of 13 didn't make any changes to the process as a result. 2 institutions added essay prompts that consider an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, but most members utilize the Common App, and pre and post decision encouraged students to utilize the Common App essay prompt related to background, identity, and interest. The reason for the lack of sweeping and wholesale changes and a lower degree of concern about the decision itself than we actually anticipated is because prior to the decision, our institutions were already successfully increasing diversity at all of our institutions. They're successful because our institutions have found that the most certain path to having a diverse campus community is to have a diverse applicant pool to begin with. As a result, they work with high school counselors and groups like College Bound and First Generation College Bound to recruit in areas with at-risk and underserved populations. We've also started innovative programs like the Guaranteed Access Partnership Program that many on this committee have heard us talk about before. In the 2022 to 2023 academic year, the state's maximum guaranteed access grant was $20,000, and all of our institutions will match that with another $20,000. And since most GA students are eligible for Pell, that's $47,000 annually to attend one of the MICU member institutions in the state. These approaches are why we've improved diversity on our campuses so successfully over the last decade. We're successfully recruiting and attracting underserved minority students and first-generation students. For many first-time students, smaller campus with smaller class sizes and greater access to faculty is particularly appealing. They receive peer mentoring, summer programs to come in advance to make sure that they're comfortable on campus. And we provide support services that help them achieve degrees at higher rates and graduate faster than any other segment of higher education. We're obviously proud of the progress we've made and fully committed to ensuring that the decision doesn't prevent us from building on our collective success. I'd really like to thank the committee for holding this briefing today and for allowing us and inviting us to participate in it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your testimony. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that our chair and former EED chair was a champion who led the increase in need-based scholarships across the state. And it's really encouraging to hear both panels leveraging their other institutional resources to maximize that investment. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. Are there any questions for this panel? He came from St. Mary's, y'all.
It was a beautiful drive.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. She made me do it. So one question I have is, so are you tracking, actually wrote it down, I was going to ask, but are you tracking the data from, low income areas to show how many students are being admitted? Like, are we tracking that particular data? Because I know we talk about diversity and inclusion, and I get that, but are we tracking the actual data from folks who are from low income areas that's going to these schools that's in disadvantaged areas? Are we tracking how many of those students that we are admitting?
So, as I look at the admission data every single day, you'd be amazed at the range of data points that I see. And indeed, we're tracking the low income, and in particular Pell eligible students. And over the course of the last 5 years, we have increased the number of Pell eligible students on campus by 20%. So we are enrolling consistently on an annual basis, 20% of our students being Pell eligible students. But one of the things as we review applications, as we think about the opportunities that the students have had in their particular schools and how that then shows itself in the application, our admission staff is very thoughtfully and thoroughly trained on how to understand how the opportunities in one particular area that might have more resources, or whether that be community resources or family resources, how that may represent itself in one way, and then also how it may represent in the other way, to ensure that students aren't disadvantaged by their family or community resources, and they come across equally in the application review.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the over 200 plus visits that you all are making to these schools that, once again, we talked about it earlier. I think exposure is key. And so once a student knows that they have those particular opportunities, I think it's extremely helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Delegate Woolek?
I still haven't figured out this. Like, am I pressing it? Am I not pressing it? I appreciate your remarks and had just a question to understand about the transfer student population from community colleges, specifically to St. Mary's, given its geographic location. I know oftentimes the student that do transfer community colleges are diverse. And what does that pipeline look like for you? Is that something that is growing? Thank you.
So leading up to the pandemic, the pipeline was indeed growing. And then beginning with the pandemic, we saw a bit of a contraction, but we actually have seen signals this past fall, as well as then the new spring enrollment, as well as our current applications for the fall 2024, that there's going to be a rebound in our transfer pipeline. Our goal is that about 20% of our entering class are transfer students, and we've been slightly shy of that for the last couple of years. When you think about the Transfer with Success Act that brought about in the last couple of years, and the needs of transfer students generally in the admission process, we have done a reorganization within the Office of Enrollment Management as well as Academic Affairs to bring together all of the resources as well as services that touch a student in the transfer process altogether. So we ensure that the outreach is happening the way that it needs to, that the transfer credit evaluations are meeting all of the expectations, and that students are receiving the support and as well as the evaluations, financial aid, so on and so forth, in a very rapid time frame in order to be able to influence their decision. As you can imagine, given our location, our largest cohort of transfer students does come from the College of Southern Maryland. With our new reorganization and our Director of Transfer Recruitment, Admission and Services, we will going to be re-engaging even more so into the other community colleges throughout the state.
Seeing no other questions, thank you both for your time. I do hope you have a great weekend and enjoy some of the flurries if you're inclined.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That will bring us to the conclusion of this particular hearing. I just want to note that it was really important that we were hearing about undergraduate pipelines, but I think many of us know that the litigation history around affirmative action has been most acutely focused on graduate and professional school admissions. So there may be some subsequent outreach we have around that, but I do deeply appreciate the hard work that you're doing to bring in more Marylanders and maybe even those from across the country and world into your campuses to really prepare our students to compete in a global economy. So thank you for all the work you're doing, and that brings this hearing to a close.
Thanks for having me.